I started watching true crime videos on YouTube quite a while ago. Recently, I came across two very tragic cases, and I think they might be relevant to the context of intentional spending, which is something I often talk about on this channel. These two cases are a reminder that what we see on the surface doesn't always represent the whole picture. The first case is about a wealthy businessman, Brendan Miller, who very sadly took his own life because he was in a lot of debt. Brendan was the husband of Candice Miller. I think her Instagram account is no longer active, but at one point she had quite a big following. I think it was about 80,000 subscribers. From my research, her content revolved around being a wonderful mother while looking glamorous and living a life of luxury. Her Instagram posts often showcase things like expensive vehicles, traveling on private planes, and having weekly facial treatment that cost $800. On the outside, they really did look like the perfect family. Together, they had two beautiful daughters, and they lived a very upscale lifestyle. But behind the scene, Brendan was dealing with immense financial stress. It was reported that Brendan was about $15 million in debt. Brendan didn't want to worry his family, so his wife Candice actually had no idea about the family's financial struggle. Even when things were really going downhill, the family was still hosting rather luxurious parties. It turned out for a while, Brendan had been trying to sustain his lifestyle by taking out more and more loans. Now, Brendan actually came from a very wealthy background, but he had been spending beyond his means. Towards the end, Brendan was also dealing with depression, and he eventually took his own life. From the letter he left for Candice, Brendan believed that his death would be best for the family because his life insurance would at least cover some of the debts. It's really tragic. The second case I'm going to talk about is even more extreme, and this one is about Rakesh Kamal, who went by Rick. Rick was a businessman who lived a seemingly successful life on the surface. He and his family lived in a massive mansion in Dover, and we're talking about a massive house with 11 rooms, 11 and a half bathrooms, a spa, a movie theater, and a swimming pool for a family of 3. The house was bought at $4 million, but the couple borrowed $3.8 million for it. The loan was actually due only 2 years after the purchase, but Rick was unable to make payment, so the court ordered the family to evict the house. But Rick refused to leave. In the months leading up to the tragedy, Rick borrowed a lot of money from his family and took out several loans. All this while, his wife and daughter were kept in the dark. In fact, his wife Tina was under the impression that the family was about to move into an even bigger mansion worth $16 million. Apparently, Tina was already buying furniture for this new mansion they were supposedly moving into. Rick portrayed such a successful image that his friends and family really looked up to him, and nobody knew he was in so much financial stress. Not knowing how to handle the situation, Rick eventually killed his wife and daughter before ending his own life. Now, these two cases are really extreme, but one thing they have in common is that both men came from a fairly wealthy background, and so they could have lived really well without the super lavish facade. In fact, if they just cut back a little, for example, moving to a less expensive area, or downsizing from a mansion to a big house, or adjusting their expenses, and so on and so forth, they would still be able to live a very comfortable life. But sadly, it was simply unacceptable for them to live a simple or ordinary life. And when a life of luxury was no longer an option, they did the unimaginable thing. These cases really remind us that what we see on the surface, whether if it's online or in real life, doesn't always reflect reality. On social media especially, it's so easy to get caught up in the highlight reels of others' lives. We are constantly looking at things like lavish holidays, designer wardrobes, and a lifestyle that looks perfect on the outside. But behind the scene, things might be very different. And I'm very much referring to myself as well. I don't post on Instagram a lot, but my Instagram or my YouTube videos are very much a highlight reel because I only film or take photos when I look and feel put together. But what you don't get to see are the moments when I feel stressed, deflated, unpresentable, or when my house is a mess. After being on the internet for a number of years, my honest opinion is that even if a blogger doesn't have any intention to fabricate anything, we still have the choice of editing out whatever we choose not to share. This means you don't always get to see the whole picture. For example, I would say I'm living a much more balanced and fulfilling life than I did 10 years ago. But I still have my fair share of struggles, which I might not share with the world. And I think once you acknowledge that nobody's life is perfect, you start to look at things quite differently, and you might also embrace your own struggles with more kindness and grace. One of the reasons I often talk about intentional spending is because it has completely shifted my perspectives. I used to really envy people with a massive collection of designer bags and nice things, whereas now I think living true to yourself and spending below your means is the true form of luxury. Some of you might remember I went through a phase where I was really into minimalism. Literally, I read every book about minimalism, I decluttered every corner of my home, and I cut down my shopping really heavily. Now, I'm no longer as intense as I used to be, but I'll always be thankful for that stage of my life because it gave me so much clarity about what I value in life. And honestly, once you know what's important to you, you won't be that interested in trying to keep up with what others are doing or buying. In fact, I'll go as far as saying you will not care about what other people think because you know you're investing in the things that truly matter to you. For example, I used to shop a lot, and for a while I had my priorities all wrong. I was never in debt, but I spent a lot of what I made on buying nice things. Not only that, during the time when I started buying luxury bags, I was also watching a lot of luxury content. And back then, there wasn't as much variation on social media. It was always either one thing or the other. It's all very clear-cut. For example, if you're into designer shopping, then you should be all in. On the other hand, if you're frugal, then you should never buy anything. And that made me think that people with designer bags should live a certain way. And for a while, I felt the social pressure to keep up with a luxurious lifestyle. For example, I never ever thought about doing a luxury haul for my birthday or anniversary until it became a thing on social media. And even though I didn't want to admit it at that point, I was basically trying to keep up with what everyone else was doing. At some point, I decided to start this YouTube channel to review luxury items. And lo and behold, I started feeling the pressure to keep showcasing new luxury items. It was as if I had to keep shopping to maintain a certain image. Fortunately, I soon learned about minimalism, and from there, I found a community of people who aim to achieve early financial independence. And that was really the first time I started to look inward and reflected on what I truly value. The thing is, in life, we often have to make choices. I mean, not many of us can have absolutely everything. And so if your resources are finite, it's okay to acknowledge that and then spend intentionally by aligning your spending with your values. For example, I like designer bags, but I don't really care about cars or designer home decorations. And because of that, I'm quite happy to carry my Hermes BIRKIN bag while driving my 10-year-old Mini. But above all, what's really important for me are not the physical things, but things like financial freedom, quality time with my family, personal growth and well-being, and having the time and freedom to work on my passions. When I became clear about my values, spending intentionally was really quite effortless. I never had to force myself to walk away from any tempting purchases because I knew I was directing my resources to something that's more important for me. And yes, I do have a small collection of nice things, but I don't see them as a priority in my life. In fact, I haven't bought a designer bag for a number of years, and many pieces have been in my collection for over 5 years. So my honest opinion is that it's okay to enjoy nice things. In fact, certain designer pieces are really well made and they can last many years, which means you might actually end up with a lower cost per wear compared to if you go for the high street option. But at some point, we need to slow down to ask ourselves if we are shopping for quality or are we doing it to try to impress other people. If you haven't done it already, do take some time to define what your values are, because trust me, it will keep you grounded. And when you feel validated in yourself, you won't worry about trying to impress other people because you know you're doing what is best for you, even if no one else can see it. I hope this video is not too heavy. I just thought it might be relevant to the kind of topics I talk about on this channel. The tragic stories of Brandon and Rick really highlight the real cost of trying to keep up with appearances. The truth is, no matter how wealthy you are, it's always possible to spend beyond your means. And when you push yourself to the limit, it can really start to impact every area of your life, such as your mental health, work life, personal life, and relationships. It's really sad that both Rick and Brandon thought that the only option was to end everything when they could have just been honest with their families about their financial struggles. Remember, what you see on social media is somebody else's highlight reel, not the whole story. So don't ever feel like you're not good enough, because true luxury is living a life that's meaningful to you, not a life built on impressing other people. That's it from me today. Take care, and I will see you soon.